Minnesota beats Seattle 27-24. Frank, I was watching this game thinking, what's happening here? Like, this Seattle team, I have such a hard time wrapping my head around, because most of the time when you're an up and down team, it's pretty easy to step back and say, you know what, you got to fix this. Whether it's your coach or just got to work on the defense, got to get the pass rush better. The quarterback's not good enough, all of that. Like, the hard part for Seattle is that some weeks Geno is good enough. And then some weeks I feel like he just gets knocked the you-know-what out over and over.
Some plays Geno is good enough. And then the next play he throws a pick where you're like, what are you doing? Geno could have thrown 5-6 interceptions in this game.
And I also look at it and say, my God, when you have the weapons he has to throw to, you should be able to throw on anybody. Like, you look at the offensive opportunities. Oh, look at me sound like a corporate guy. The offensive opportunities out there for Seattle. They've got 2 running backs that can play. They didn't run the ball well today. They've got a whole handful of receivers that I think scare the snot out of everybody, and a quarterback that can't put up 315 yards like he did today and 3 touchdowns. Also the 2 picks. But the point, the defense is ahead of schedule. In every possible way, Seattle should be very good. And in most of those ways, I look at it and say, I don't know that they're where they should be, and I don't know what fixes that easily. Like, Minnesota, this was a battle. And I looked at that and I was like, should I look at this as, wow, Seattle just battled one of the best teams in the NFC and went blow for blow for them, which is proof that they are in that class? Or do I look at it and say, man, I don't know how the hell Seattle loses, but that's just what they do in these sorts of games.
Yeah, I mean, look, they had a chance to win the NFC West a few weeks ago. They were really in great position. And the Rams have just overtaken them. They're going to win the West. Like, it's over. It's not over, but we all know it's over. The Rams are going to win the West after what happened today. And you brought up a good point. What do the Seahawks do to fix this? And we were talking, producer Stone, Seahawks fan, talking before we started taping this. Do you bring back Geno? Do you just pay Geno? Or do you have to go in a different direction? Do you have to go find something else? We've talked about the musical chairs that are going to happen in the NFL offseason coming up at quarterback. It's not going to be pretty for some teams. Do you hold out to Geno just because what's behind door number 2 might not be that appealing? Or do you just say, you know what, Geno, you're good at times, but you're just inconsistent enough that we're never going to get to where we want to go with you? I don't know the answer to that. I'll be honest. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, did you just run it back with Geno?
Yeah, I think you're running back with Geno, but that's because most years you would go out and draft a quarterback. Most years you'd say, you know what, this is over. We're going to bridge this guy, and we're just going to bring in somebody to let him compete. This is, as I've said for months with you at this point, a tragically bad quarterback draft class. There just isn't going to be a guy by the time Seattle picks that I think is worthy of doing that. So maybe you take a 3rd-round flyer on somebody and you just hope that you can develop them. But realistically, I mean, you're really talking, this isn't about Geno. This is about, as we say so often, like, where are you going from this? So this is Geno versus Aaron Rodgers. This is Geno versus Will Levis. This is Geno, depending on what happens, maybe you want to turn around and say, okay, depending on what the Vikings do at the quarterback position, maybe that could provide an opportunity, but there's going to be a bidding war there. So, like, if Geno versus Kirk Cousins, you go Geno. You keep the devil you know.
Yeah, I guess. I think Geno, again, most of the time Geno plays really well. And when he's protected well, he plays better. I mean, that's most quarterbacks, right? But he just, he made some bad mistakes in this game. And it's just at a point of, can you win? Can you be a championship contender with a guy like Geno? They have everything else around him, really. Like, you just talked about that. You talked about all the weapons they have. I don't know that I can get over the hump with Geno. I really don't. I like him. I generally like Geno Smith. But I especially now he's getting older. It just, I don't know. I don't know what the Seahawks do. They're stuck in that middle class at quarterback where you just say, we're probably going to just run this back because that's what all NFL teams do. But we really, truly know that this isn't the guy.
Man, I hear you on that. I want to say this the right way. Every time I hear a fan base say we are stuck with middle class at quarterback, all I think about is that person that quits their job because they're waiting for a management position without having another job lined up. Like, what's worse than being middle class at the quarterback position? being poor at the quarterback position. And
yeah.
I live this, like, as well as Aiden O'Connell played today. Let's be honest. You think I wouldn't kill at this point to have watched Derek Carr for the last couple of years? But all Derek Carr, like, all Raiders fans out there did say, well, yeah, it's Derek Carr. We're never really going to be able to win with Derek Carr. You're right. You're not going to win a Super Bowl with Derek Carr, but you're not going to suck with Derek Carr. And I think what we forget sometimes is that, yes, you're stuck with Geno Smith and you're looking around like, I don't know, we're not going to win a Super Bowl with this guy. Okay, but you're probably not going to go 4-13. And if you get rid of Geno without an idea of what you're doing, you might be facing 4-13. You can't win in the NFL with a bad quarterback. You can win enough in the NFL with a decent quarterback to at least give yourself a little bit of hope. This is where I'm too jaded. I'm too hurt by watching bad quarterback play for the majority of my life. I think when you get a mediocre, like you get a solid 6 at a quarterback position, you marry him. You're like, hey, you know what? 6 is better than I deserve.
That's so hard, Fitz. I mean, it's so like, I'm just saying, like,
you're right.
If you get to a point where you're like, I can't win with this guy. We could go 9-8. Like, we can go, if everything breaks right, we can go 10-7. That's no way to live in the NFL. I get what you mean. The alternate is bad, and that's what gets people fired. Like, when you go 4-13, that's when your coaching staff is gone the next year. And that's why these teams settle at quarterback. But I don't know. I think Geno's the type of quarterback that if everything went right, if you just said, you know what, Geno's our guy, all of our draft is going to be offensive line, free agency offensive line. We're gonna build up that offensive line in front of him. That it's really failed him in a lot of ways. Then maybe if everything breaks right injury wise, you could have a 11-12 win type of season, and then you hope to get lucky and hot in the playoffs. But I don't know. This purgatory the Seahawks are in is not the best of places because you just don't. I think Seahawks fans at this point kind of know, yeah, Geno's good, but he's never going to get us to where we want to go.
So are we concerned about Minnesota on the other part of this? Because
no,
you're not. Okay, because I mean, let's face it.
This is a tough place to play, man. Seattle's one of the few true home field advantages.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Look, and it's impressive. Look, you need to get to the playoffs and have this kind of this metal built up. I do believe in that, right? It's narrative street, but that's okay. And the Vikings, when you think back on their season, how many times have they faced a situation of, all right, we're up against it. We need Sam Darnold to come through right now with a game-winning drive. He needs to be John Elway for the next 2 minutes. And it hasn't happened often because they've been kind of cruising past teams, to their credit. Like, they haven't had a lot of really, really close games like this where they were in a lot of trouble. They were in trouble. Like, Geno throws the touchdown pass with about 4.5 minutes to go, and it looks like Seattle's going to win that game. And you're like, okay, Sam, here you go. Like, show that, you're the guy who's going to be out on the market next offseason, maybe making $50 million a year. And he did. And look, it helps to have Justin Jefferson to throw to. He threw a beautiful 39-yard touchdown pass to Justin Jefferson, the best receiver on the planet.
My God, he dropped it right in between two guys that were right there. I'm just,
the throw, the catch, and it was just beautiful. Like that's the type of play that when you get into a playoff situation, it's not always going to be easy. We know that. The Vikings are going to be on the road against Philly, let's say, and they're going to be down, 3 points, and all those people are going to be MFing the Vikings, MFing Sam Darnold in Philly. You got to say, okay, well, you know what? Remember that game at Seattle when it was raining? We were down and it looked like we were going to lose. We won then, we can win now. So I think for that reason, this was a huge win for the Vikings to come up with a victory like this where they faced a lot of adversity and Sam did his thing. Justin Jefferson came through because he's unbelievable. Defense got some key turnovers. I thought this was a good win, a character-building win for Minnesota, to use a very used cliche. But this was, I think, a big step for the Vikings in becoming a real, true Super Bowl contender. And I know that's weird to say about a 13-2 team. Like, of course they're a Super Bowl contender, but I think we're both skeptical a little bit that they're going to get into the playoffs and it's Sam Darnold and they're going to fall apart a little bit. But hey, maybe not. This game showed a lot, and it just keep. What reason do we have to question the Minnesota Vikings at this point when they just keep winning football games?
If they win their last 2 games, they will clinch the number 1 seed overall.
Yeah. Can you imagine, by the way, Sunday night, we're going to have 2 14-2 teams playing. One of them's going to get the number 1 seed, and the other one's going to be on a road wildcard weekend.
God, I can't wait for that.
That would be the greatest flex game in Sunday night history, Week 18 history. That would be just unbelievable. It's honestly probably going to happen.